Hello everyone, my name is Raihanah Marzuqoh Sahl. I am student of communication, batch 2021. Here I would like to explain about the audience research of introduction to media. What is audience research? So, audience research is two distinct approaches characterized by their expression and their underlying ideologies. Audience research in media studies is an approach to understand the characteristics, preference, behaviors, and attitudes of audience towards media. The main goal of audience research is to gain better insight to the audience so that media parties can produce content that is relevant and interesting to them. By understanding of the audience better, media can improve the effectiveness of their communication and making and marketing strategies. In early studies, the mass media possessed significant influence and the capacity to modify audience behavior. Frankfurt School is about the ruling elite employing mass media to shape and suppress the lower classes, compelling them to conform to the government's desire and the extreme right-wing nationalist ideology of the Nazis. So, in FS, this critical theory intends to create a critical awareness of society in individual community relation, spanning social, cultural, and media. From a morally perspective, the early studies on audience and media effect emerged as a reaction against the pessimistic views expressed by scholars as advocated by American researchers. Based on German society's experience, family and community ties weakened with the ascendancy of fascist ideology. Fascism is an understanding based on principle of leadership with absolute authority. You could say the rules that have been set by the leader must be obeyed. From this, individuals can become increasingly susceptible to external influence, particularly the mass media, but influenced by the propaganda disseminated by the ruling faction within society. The mass media functioned as a hypodermic needle, or we can say the media has a direct and powerful influence on general audience. In the hypodermic needle, this is better known as the bullet theory, where the mass media gives extraordinary effects such as needles or batlet. Because this theory had an extraordinary and powerful effect, when it first appeared, people were vaccinated with all advantage of mass media, so that as a result of media become strong to influence society. However, this theory was criticized because the public became accustomed or comfortable with the media, so that the audience was able to control the media effect. And finally, the media is no longer seen as having power. Then finally came the theory of active audience. The criticism of media effect are assumption of a homogeneous and passive audience and assuming media message possesses the ability to induce behavioral change based on FS researchers that presented media effect as excessively direct, overlooking the pluralistic nature of American society, which differs from German society. The dominant tradition in audience research that emerged in the US after World War II. An assumption that media messages have a direct and powerful impact on audience behavior and attitude. There is two orientations or approaches. The first one is the message effect orientation, characterized by behaviorist and empirical perspective. Employ laboratory research examine change in audience behavior when exposed to or influenced by media message. The second one is the audience oriented approach. It's like a structural functional approach and focus on the social characteristic of diverse audiences, such as class background, educational levels, and other social factors. Their social characteristics influence how the audience receive or reject media message. Yale University researchers like Carl Hofland, Irving Janis, Fred Sheffield about their studies is the attitude change is closely tied to the learning process, whereby individuals can alter their attitudes during the learning process. But Carl Hovland said conducted research on behalf on the US military. So the aim of their research is to examine attitude change resulting from exposure to media message and to evaluate the effectiveness of these communication materials. Based on Albert Bandura studies about the effect of media violence on children, exposure to certain media message and images could alter audience behavior. Public concern about the depiction of violence in film and television during the 1960s about due to the large number of violent scenes that society could have when they watch such scenes. When this happens, it is the media that ultimately influence society. So, with the fears that such violent image could influence individuals and encourage violence behavior for those who watch that scene. Audience studies is critical perspective reception analysis about encoding and decoding of media message. Critical perspective on audience studies begin by advancing several criticism of the earlier studies and perspective. The first one is heavy on empirical data in understanding and interpreting the meanings of media and message and image. And the second one is the fundamental philosophy and concepts of this perspective still remain functionalist and behavioralist. The concept of encoding and decoding originated in Stuart Hall. Hall divides the communication process into three moments as follows. The first one is the moment of encoding is practice carried out by media institution as production practices. And the second one is the moment of the text, the form and content of published or broadcast message that are symbolic constructs, composed and arranged. And the last one is the moment of decoding is consumption or recite of the text by the recipient. Is a moment that is not passive because there is a construction of meaning called reception. In the concept of encoding and decoding, active audience is included in the reception analysis because the audience can produce meaning, but each individual is different in capturing that meaning. All communication phenomena should be explained by examining the pattern of power relation within society. Audience studies should examine how the process of meaning making of media message by the audience is shaped through the social and cultural structures. A critical approach that evaluates the process of meaning making and examines its relationship with the socio-economic structure of society. And the last one is talk about the problem and limitation of such studies. Society is homogeneous. The theoretical framework is supported by dominant assumptions of empirical and behavioralist functional analysis. Society fails to investigate the constructed and manufactured nature of violent image portrayed in television programs and films. It can be suggested that mass media is the sole cause that encourages violence behavior. And the last one is laboratory setting isolate respondent from the external influence. So that's all from me. Thank you so much.